got a PowerPoint presentation that we put together to kind of explain. Part one of this explains the history of how we got to where we got to today, where we are today. The second part of the presentation is just going through the agreement article by article. We've been accused of different locations. We've been accused of, death by PowerPoint and all kinds of things like that. If the consensus of the group is, let's just skip this and get to where, you guys can start yelling at us, we can do that. If you want to go through the PowerPoint, we can do that. Brian and Gene saw it down in Fort Worth. It's the same presentation, so it's up to the group whether you want it.
I haven't seen it there.
I saw it.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Okay. So, go through it.
My opinion is they at least need to see the history part.
Okay.
Yeah, we hear, let's look at it.
Okay.
It ain't gonna take a week, is it? We go down there a week?
I will go as fast as I can. I won't stop and tell stories or elaborate or anything like that. We'll just run through this real quick. Why are crew consist agreements necessary? Our existing crew consist agreements mandate a minimum ground service presence on each road and yard job. Without our crew consist agreements, the carrier's managerial prerogative will allow it to staff road and yard jobs at whatever level it deems necessary. Are our existing crew consist agreements in any jeopardy? Our crew consist agreements are currently protected by a conditional moratoria prohibiting either party from serving notice under Section 6 of the Railway Labor Act to change the existing crew consist agreements. And this is cut and paste right out of our 1980 crew consist. And we don't have to read it. Essentially, neither party can serve notice to change it while any of the protected employees are still working. Question. If our current crew consist agreements are protected by moratorium, doesn't that provide adequate protection for the foreseeable future? No. Our moratoria are nearing the end of their useful life cycles. Most of our original crew consist agreements were written in 1980. In order to be crew consist protected, employees had to be on a ground service roster on the effective date of that agreement. Assuming he/she was at least 18 years of age when hired, the youngest crew consist protected employee was born in 1962 and will turn 60 in 2022 with 42 years of service. Under current 60/30 railroad retirement provisions, the last current crew consist protected employee referenced in the moratorium will be eligible to retire for full benefits in 2022. For all practical purposes, our current moratorium will expire in 8 years. Furthermore, bargaining power to negotiate the next generation crew consist agreement diminishes each day as these employees leave the industry. The carrier tells us that TY&E employees are currently attriting out at approximately 1,000 per year. Once the last crew consist protected employee is gone, the carrier is free to serve notice to change crew consist. Question. If the end of the moratorium just means the carrier is free to serve notice to change crew consist, do we know that they will? The answer is yes, and we've had a glimpse at what that notice will look like. In the 2004 National Bargaining Round, the National Carriers Conference Committee, NCCC, served notice on Smart TD to change crew consist to whatever staffing level the carriers deem necessary. These are the four excerpts from that Section 6 notice. 1. All train and engine service positions shall be consolidated. The consolidated position shall be known as transportation employee and shall be governed by a common collective bargaining agreement. Subsequent to consolidation, the work formerly performed separately by train and engine service positions shall be performed by qualified transportation employee. Concurrent with consolidation, crew size shall be based on operational needs as determined by the railroad. That's the part we would say they can staff crews at whatever level they feel like. Representatives of the railroad and the transportation employees shall jointly negotiate an equitable distribution of the work among transportation employees. In the event the parties are unable to reach agreement, the matter shall be referred to final and binding arbitration. There can be no doubt that the carrier's ultimate goal is to win the unilateral ability to staff train and yard crews at whatever level they deem necessary. Question. Can we use our collective bargaining strength to maintain an onboard ground service presence on all train operations? Answer. The world's industrialized landscape is littered with discarded jobs which were once performed by human beings but were eventually overtaken by technology. Despite long, protracted fights by some once powerful labor unions to preserve those jobs. Think the way that UAW fought the robots coming onto the assembly line in 1980. We couldn't build a car today without those robots. This is an excerpt from a Frank Wilner Railway Age article. Frank Wilner used to write for UTU. He's now working or writes for Railway Age, the industry magazine. Once upon a time, as many as 7 men made up a freight train crew, including a locomotive engineer, a fireman to tend the firebox generating steam, up to 4 brakemen who manually engage and disengage primitive train brakes atop moving cars, and a conductor in charge of the whole crew. Since that time, the railroad industry has witnessed the following. Firemen were made obsolete by diesel locomotives. Cabooses and their rear end crews were made obsolete by ETDs and more reliable failed equipment detectors. Brakemen on over-the-road trains were made obsolete by automatic air brakes and the removal of cabooses. Second yard helper was made obsolete by portable radios. Most switch tenders were made obsolete by remotely controlled power switches. Many tower operators were made obsolete by automatic interrupt. Technology has already reduced Frank Wilner's 7-person crew down to 2 persons. Okay, we'll take a look at positive train control here. The implementation of positive train control was mandated by the Railroad Safety Improvement Act of 2008, aka RSIA. We don't know that. Like they did when power brakes and automatic couplers were mandated. All Class 1 railroads, including BNSF, initially resisted the idea primarily because of its research and development costs. BNSF has since done about face and now fully embraces PTC, going so far as to publicly declare that it will voluntarily exceed most of RSIA's implementation mandates, even those which FRA has postponed. This is a map of BNSF's projected where they're going to have PTC up and running by the end of 2014. And you can see for you guys, that's your track. 2015, you can see where it's going to spread to other parts of the system. And we didn't get one for 16, but here's the one for 17. They're going to just keep implementing PTC on more and more of the railroad as time goes on. Although logic would seem to dictate that 2 sets of eyes and ears in the cab is safer than 1 set of eyes and ears, to date, no statistics have been produced which support that logic. That's not me saying that. There's no statistics. There's no data that says that supports that. There's a growing school of thought which holds that 1-person operations with a PTC overlay may actually be safer than 2-person operations. And you can bet your bottom dollar that the carriers are going to cite that study that said that the second guy up there in the cab is actually a distraction. They're going to bring that study to a congressional hearing, to an arbitration hearing, or something in the future. They will do something. Sooner or later, just like all past technological advances, PTC will eventually render the oversight function currently being performed by the onboard conductor for all practical purposes obsolete. You probably heard the quote, "Those that cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it." History teaches us that just as previous advancements in technology rendered firemen and brakemen obsolete over road train operations, PTC and other technological advances will, at some point in the near future, render the conductor's onboard presence on over-the-road trains obsolete. This is another Frank Wilner, an excerpt from an article he did for Railway Age. Former UTU President Byron Boyd, perhaps the most visionary rail union president of his generation, Embracing technology has never been stopped by labor unions, and the best course for unions in protecting their members' long-term job security is to engage in interest-based bargaining with carriers and jointly to manage technological change for the benefit of both parties. Whether we like it or not, whether we admit it or not, technology will soon render many of our traditional ground service duties obsolete. Question. Even if the carrier renews its 2004 notice at the end of our moratorium and we are forced to negotiate to hold on to any portion of the dwindling number of TYD positions, excuse me, aren't we protected by Item 4 of the Carrier Section 6 notice, which requires equitable distribution of the work and binding arbitration if we're unable to reach agreement? Bear in mind that in its 2004 notice, the carrier was not only asking for a single craft of transportation employee governed by a single collective bargaining agreement, it was also asking for the unilateral ability to staff all crews at whatever level it found necessary. Fact is, existing technology would allow the carrier to eliminate a number of TYD positions that they contractually win the right to do so. Furthermore, developing technology and future technologies not even dreamed of today will continue to render more and more TYD positions unnecessary. Under the scenario set up by the carrier's 2004 notice, Smart TV would be one of 3 players at the bargaining table, and more importantly, one of 2 players competing for an ever-shrinking number of TYD positions. That means that 2/3 of our future would be in the hands of BNSF and BLET, both of which have well-documented agendas that are anything but friendly to ground service crafts. Removing binding arbitration puts our future entirely in the hands of a process that arbitrator Robert Harris reportedly called the oldest established permanent floating track game in Washington. It could be argued that the structure of the carrier's 2004 Section 6 notice was strategically intended to pit the BLE against Smart TD in a winner-take-all fight to the death for the remaining positions on board over-the-road trains. If so, the BLE has already positioned itself to win that fight. In its 2007 on-property agreement with BNSF, BLET has already negotiated a scope rule which makes engineers the last man standing on all over-the-road trains, whether on board. This is the actual language from the on-property agreement in 2007. If operations of train or locomotives or other on-rail equipment in any class of road service calls for any on-board human presence, e.g. an attendant, overrider, or lookout, then a BNSF locomotive engineer will perform that function on that train, locomotive, or other on-rail equipment, or even from a remote location. If in any form of on-rail road service, no on-board presence is required, but any human remote control operation occurs, even from a distant fixed location, then such human operation of remote control will be performed by a BNSF locomotive engineer, provided such operation is not wholly incidental to another employee's duties, e.g. a dispatcher. In addition, the BLE has also negotiated an agreement which contemplates engineer-only road operation. This is another excerpt from their 2007 on-property agreement. A locomotive engineer working engineer-only in road service will be paid a special allowance per tour of duty or working start, paid on basis of a new day, and the amount equal to 2 hours pay at the straight time hourly rate of the applicable position, in addition to all other earnings. In no event will there be more than one such payment to an engineer per tour of duty or working start paid on basis of a new day. The carrier is successful in renewing and implementing its 2004 notice, Section 6 notice. The questions then become, which craft seniority will those single craft transportation employees use to access the shrinking number of economic positions? Which craft seniority boundaries will control the utilization of that seniority? And which organization will control the common collective bargaining agreement proposed by the carrier? Those are all unanswered questions. Don't have an answer right now. Another quote from a Frank Wilner article. Crew consist debate heating up again. Second trick question. Were 2 members per train to prevail, which union would represent the 2? Not lost among those steeped in crew consist history is a recent BLET press release making reference to an airplane flight deck and 2 qualified pilots. It failed reference to a former BLET goal that 2 qualified engineers rather than an engineer and a conductor be required on each train. Like it or not, this is the race to the bottom. Question: in the context of the carrier's 2004 Section 6 notice, BLE were to gain control of the common collective bargaining agreement governing the working conditions of all transportation employees, how would the BLE treat former ground service crafts? This is a press release from a Canadian episode about 15 years ago where the BLE collaborated. They were found guilty of collaborating with Via Rail. Via Rail is the Canadian Amtrak. It's the Canadian National Passenger Service. And they were found guilty of collaborating with Via Rail and cut a number of conductors just plumb out of the job. Question: besides the Via Rail example, are there any other examples of how BLET represents non-engineered craft? History tells us BLET will likely follow its pattern of its Lake Erie plan, which, based on the airline flight deck model, utilizes only an engineer and a co-engineer for train crew staff. BLET's 2001 RCO agreement on Montana Railway, where BLET represents all operating craft, allows for a crew of 2 engineers and no ground service positions. Whether the BLE will protect you as long as you're an engineer. Question: wouldn't it make more sense to consolidate with BLET and jointly negotiate the best deal for all crafts? There have been 7 failed attempts at a merger between the BLET and Smart TD. Smart TD and BLET last attempted to consolidate in 2003. Smart TD ratified the consolidation, but the BLET voted it down and almost immediately thereafter consolidated with the TD. Based on their track record, there's no reason to believe that the 2 organizations are going to find a way to consolidate anytime soon. And as we've already pointed out, we're running out of time. Furthermore, as previously mentioned, the BLET has already gone its own way and carved out a technology-friendly position for engineers, which includes an engineer will be the